My name is Jade, owner and principal planner of Joyful Events by Jade, and this is The Cookie Table. This is a podcast all about love, marriage, relationships, and the wedding industry, wedding news. Perfect for anyone that is getting married, is married, a wedding vendor, or someone that just loves weddings. Grab your favorite cookie from The Cookie Table, pour yourself a glass of Chardonnay, and let's get into it. Thank you for joining The Cookie Table for another at-home baking break as we take another week to bake the cookies, so to speak. It is a solo episode at home as I am taking advantage of having my new iPhone, trying to do some quality stuff. I know it's not as amazing as in the studio, but just after the long wedding season, the burnout was starting to feel really real. So it's nice to have this capability, not as perfect, of course, as a high quality studio, but thank you for still listening and joining me as we talk all things weddings. This week, I think it ties in weddings and relationships. I wanted to talk about kids at weddings. I think it's a really interesting topic. It is something that gets brought up annually. I always hear about it. A lot of my couples will talk about their feelings and what's right and what's not right with it. Vendors, my frienders, I have heard, again, so many different things over the years that I think it's a really good one to kind of dive into, and it's a little fun. I'm a mother myself, as you know, an 18-month-old. And for me personally, I don't want him at a wedding if I'm a guest. I just don't. I try to really enjoy the quality time I can with my husband, and getting invited to a wedding is such a great excuse to get the babysitter and get the night out. And I understand sometimes having a babysitter, finding a babysitter could be difficult, being able to afford a sitter. So I understand completely all of that. But if you can do it, or if you have family or a village that can watch your kiddo or kiddos for the night out, enjoy it. I personally don't want to be chasing after my child. He's in the stage where he does not sit. It's just a little unenjoyable for me. Um, I was at a wedding in June, and there was a father who was doing that all night, probably chasing. He looked about 4 years old. He was just running everywhere. He never really sat down. And the dad kind of looked defeated. And it was, I was talking to him. I was like, man, he reminds me of my son. Doesn't stop moving. He was like, yeah, he's tired and out of breath. So, um, we got a lot of really great feedback from frienders. A few were audioed in. I got some great audio messages, as well as a few that were written. So I want to go through all those and the different thoughts. A way to feature you onto the podcast. I appreciate you for your responses. So we're going to get into those, and we're going to start with M20 Media, Mara, a local videographer. She sent in a written response. She DM'd me on Instagram at the Cookie Table Podcast. And she said, I just had a wedding where a kid kept running in front of the head table during speeches, and we tried to get him to move, and he came over and started actually moving one of my tripods. I don't want to yell at someone else's kids, but I just about had to that day, LOL. Thankfully, the dad came running up and yanked him away. Also, if there's a kid at the ceremony, the chance of them screaming and ruining a part of the audio recording is almost 100%. As a videographer, in terms of audio, we touched on this in 2 episodes ago with Michael Will about speeches and audio, especially so ceremony audio, the vows, and your speeches. That is home run audio for videography that they're putting into your video. Now, I understand audio can sometimes be an add-on for some videographers. For the most part, you're probably getting your audio if you're getting married and you want a video. That's what kind of pulls at the heartstrings for me. When I got my wedding video back and I heard the audio in it, it was spectacular. Took the video kind of up a notch for sure. So if you're considering a videographer, it's something to think about. If you're getting married, do you want possibly a young child screaming during your vows? Do you want a kiddo starting to cry? And you would hope that that guest or that parent would take the kid out of the ceremony, but it's crazy. You can't actually honestly guarantee that anymore. You honestly can. So ruining audio is a really, really good point that kids can do at your wedding or at a wedding. To move a tripod, yeah, I the dad came and got the kid, so I get that. It's a parent again, it's hard. You don't know what your kid's going to do. You hope they're not going to do something like that. But you can't guarantee it. So, you know, ugh, that's hard. As a videographer, that's hard. But Mara, it sounds like you handled it spectacularly. Um, a good friend of my sister's and mine as well. Her name is Carly. She owns the Instagram account Kids Eat PGH. It's all about great places where families can go with their kids, which I think is a really great account if you are a parent. She's showcasing spots because I know it can be hard finding a place to go to eat where you feel comfortable taking your child. That if they do start to act up, you don't feel like they're raising hell, essentially. So she was another written response. We'll go through this one next. Thank you, Carly, for messaging me on Instagram, again, at the Cookie Table Podcast. This is what she said. And she is a mother of two herself. And again, obviously has an account based on places to go with children, which is wonderful. But what she had to say, I think, was great. I love to see kids at weddings because I feel like they add a lot of fun to the reception, especially when the dancing occurs. I also think it's good for kids to get to see real life love and happy moments instead of seeing it on social media or not at all. With that being said, Carly said, it is 100% on the parent to be aware of their child and do whatever necessary so they don't interfere with the wedding, decor, noise, pictures, etc. If a parent decides to bring their kids, then they need to be watching them like a hawk. Also, I personally don't expect a kids meal. If you have a picky eater and they won't eat off of your plate or the buffet, then I think it's the parent's responsibility to provide a packed meal and or snacks. That's a great point. The kids meal thing can get a little interesting. I think I've had couples in the past say that a parent was kind of demanding the adult nice meal for their 7 or 8 year old because that's what they would eat and they wouldn't eat a chicken tender meal. You know what your kids eat. So if you do know that your kid doesn't eat a lot of food or might take a few bites at that point, just have them, give them a few bites off of your plate and bring extra things. I completely agree with that. Why are you making the couple pay, at that point the kids meal is still probably at least $20 anymore. Why pay for that if your kid's going to have a few bites? So I respect that completely. Know your children, be honest with that, and don't expect it. I do like what she said about seeing happiness. I think that is beautiful. Now, what Carly also said was, as a parent, I'd like the option to bring my kids unless it's a super fancy plate or black tie event because we don't have a village to help us. Going into my first point. She continues to say, and we take our kids everywhere. So they are seasoned vets at being out and behaving. I totally get that's not the case for everyone. So it's hard as a bride and groom to pick and choose. It definitely has to be all or nothing with inviting kids unless the only kids there are in the wedding party or parents are in the wedding in some capacity. If you don't invite someone's kids and they see others there, it might spark up some not so great feelings. So here's a few things you can do. If you are inviting kids to be a part of your wedding party, so flower girl or ring bearer, what you can do, depending on their age, and if you don't want to invite other children, you can have them leave after the ceremony. That is not unkosher or wrong to do. You can also put on your wedding website about our kids invited. That's a really common FAQ on the FAQ page. And you can say on there, the only kids that are invited are super, super close to the couple. There are a few things that you can kind of, I think, vet that. Again, everybody's different. It is hard that I feel like you do have to take a lot of people's feelings in consideration. My planning style, you know me by now. It's your wedding and I want you to do what you want to do. So if you absolutely don't want kids there, but you want your niece to be in the wedding party as a little flower person, then I think that's completely fine to either have them go after the ceremony or have someone pick them up, come maybe 8 o'clock or right after dinner. And then if I was someone at a wedding and my child wasn't invited, but I saw your flower girl, I personally would not get mad at that. I wouldn't. Um, and I'm saying that more as a parent, not as a wedding planner, I promise. These are our really good points though, and things to take in consideration when you are having them. And at that point, if you feel like there are people on your guest list, you know your guest list. Think about it. Think about who would have kids and who would get offended if their child wasn't invited. If you do have anyone on your guest list that would be upset, maybe you just ixnay having children in your wedding party altogether. If it's not a super make or break thing, if you'd rather not ruffle the feathers, those are some thoughts on that as well. But again, that is from at Kids Eat PGH, great Instagram account for families. So go ahead and follow Carly at that if you don't. These are all really good points, all really good points about kids at weddings. Now we have some really great audio too that we're going to listen to. The first one I'm going to pull up. Let's see. We are going to listen to Mia Galippi from Clicksburgh Retro Rentals. She recently has taken over ownership of Oh So Frilly. It's a really, really cool venue, antique vintage type venue that's like a little home in the Sewickley area. It's perfect for bridal showers and little teas and events like that. So definitely check her out if you haven't yet.
Okay, love kids, but not at weddings. So from a wedding vendor standpoint, specifically a photo booth vendor, it gets totally out of control with children. And in our experience, at least, it's mostly because the parents are trying to have fun and they're enjoying themselves and they may be drinking or dancing and they're really just not keeping an eye on the kids. And so we kind of become the babysitters for the evening because the photo booth is super fun for them. So, it's fine, but it's not fine when things start getting a little crazy because they're so excited and have so much energy, and we've had things happen where, they'll start beating up the props and they'll start, trying to hit the screen more harder. They'll fight over who gets to choose what on the screen. And, it's been almost knocked over a few times. So, if you're going to have kids at your wedding, that's fine. But you need to at least keep an eye on them so other people aren't babysitting your children when we're just trying to do our jobs. So that's just our opinion from a wedding vendor standpoint. And it's just because of the experiences we've had, not saying all kids are like that and not saying all weddings will be like that, but just our opinion.
Thank you, Mia. Again, Mia Galippi with Clicksburgh Retro Rentals and Oh So Frilly events. So she does photo booths as well. I think the bottom line is, you know your kid. So if your kiddo is one of those really rambunctious ones, or if you are trying to have a good time and you're not in the mood to watch your kiddo, which is how I am at weddings, just think about it before you take them. If your kid is someone that doesn't sit still, maybe it's worth getting the sitter, because yeah, it does. It makes your job harder, and that's actually a really good point in terms of um, the photo booth props. That's could be irritating. And actually, we had this happen to us this year. It was a wedding that we were doing. We had a kid grab a bunch of the uplights and put them in a row, and he kept playing with them. And at that point, someone like tripped over them. And my one lead planner, Desiree, ended up finally getting up because she was texting me at this point. I had left, and she was texting me about this kid that was breakdancing in the middle of the dance floor. It was kind of comical, but once he started moving all the uplights and then someone tripped over them, it was like, okay, this is, this is becoming like a hazard. So then it puts it on to us and my team to step in and do something because the parent isn't. That gets really uncomfortable, because you don't want to tell a kid they can't do something that's not your kid, especially when You're not there to babysit, you're there to work. It was funny, but also strange, and I've never had one take all the uplights before. The DJ was kind of just letting it happen because same thing, he felt uncomfortable. He didn't know what to do or say. Um, the dad at that point was he was very drunk. He was super super drunk. So they just weren't paying attention to him, or nor did they care because they were close to the couple. So uh, all things to think about. All things to think about. This is a great point. Um, another wonderful guest we have here. This is Victoria. Victoria with Burgh Brides.
So this is probably a unique perspective, but as a parent, I am all for adult only receptions. I jump at any chance I have to enjoy a fun night out without having to worry about chasing my kid around, or whether they're going to misbehave, or whether they're going to have a tantrum, or whether they're going to need something, or we're going to have to leave early. I love when I have an excuse to send my kid to grandma's house for the night or for the weekend, and I get to have some fun with people my own age and with my husband and with my friends, and I fully support no kids at weddings.
Victoria, you are me and I am you. This is exactly how I feel. It's exactly how I feel. And one of the biggest takes, so to speak, that I've seen on threads is how upset parents get when their kids are not invited. They get so upset and so angry about it. And I don't fully get that. One of my best friends got married in New York City, and it wasn't even a question. My mom was either going to come with me and stay in a separate hotel room to watch him, or he was going to stay at home, Jax. And Jason and I ended up leaving Jax back in Pittsburgh for 3 days. We cut the trip as short as we could. He was young, so at that point he doesn't really know I was going. It was like the perfect age. He was 4 months. So he just had like no idea that we left. It was hard for me as a parent, and you might be listening to this and be like, oh my God, how could she leave her baby at 4 months? It was tough. It was tough. This was also my best friend. I've known her for a very, very long time, literally since we were in grade school, became best friends. Like seventh grade, we got super, super close. I will openly say this. I've always openly say this. My entire identity is not being a mom. I do want to be a person outside of being a mother as well. So I think that was important to be able to go, and I was going to make it work regardless. So that was just not something that I just was never upset at that. For some reason, I just wasn't. But that is also going back to what Carly said, I do have my parents that I can rely on. I also have my sister if we need help as well. So I'm incredibly grateful that I do have wonderful family that will watch Jax in that scenario. And I know that, which is I know a massive privilege. So I can't thank my family enough for being a part of Jax's life and being able to help us. Um, so, I understand these are all the caveats that go into children at weddings or not. It does not offend me if they're not invited. And as I get older, I feel like I just really genuinely believe I'm going to feel the same way. All right, we have one more. One more. All right, this is one of one of my clients. Her name is Jamie. She is getting married next September. She's a coordination and design client, so we've been working on her design. So again, this is Jamie. She is one of my clients getting married next year.
But my name is Jamie. I am a 2025 bride, one of Jade's brides. Very excited about that. We love Jade. Could not survive wedding planning without her. Here's your plug to hire a wedding planner, and I might be biased, but you should hire Jade. Anyways, kids at weddings definitely have some very strong opinions. I do want to start by saying I'm sure there are circumstances where a kid could be at a wedding and it would be okay in my book. Not that my book is the Bible, but I know some people have kids before they get married and they want their kids to be there. I think that's beautiful. or if they're super family centric and have low to no alcohol and like everybody's bringing their families, then like I think that is nice too. But for the weddings that I like to go to, and that I would like for myself as well, the main focus of the wedding is a party. And a lot of the times a party means alcohol. And I'm just not so sure that party environment's the best for kids. One, they're probably seeing things that they shouldn't be seeing at a young age. And I know that we all have those stories about, we were kids, a flower girl at my aunt's wedding, and Uncle Joe Schmo over there was so drunk and couldn't stand up and was falling all over the place. But I don't know. I'm just not so sure that I want my kids to be seeing that. So that's my first point. I don't know that that's the most appropriate environment for them, where they might be exposed to things a little bit too young. My second point is, a lot of times the kids don't care about the wedding. I've been to so many weddings that the kids are there, and during the ceremony, they're sitting on their parents' phones or reading books or playing on their tablets. And they're not going to remember your wedding. I don't remember my cousin's wedding that I was in when I was like 6. And people that bring their babies to the wedding, they're not going to remember that. So what's the point in paying for them if they're not really there to share the experience with you? And potentially could be disruptive. I know that that's a huge thing with kids, and I don't mean to harp on it, but babies crying during a ceremony, volume being on for iPads or phones when the parents don't realize, like, all take away from the attention on you. And maybe that's conceited of me, but I would like the attention to be on me for my wedding ceremony, and not have some person looking down to see what the kid's doing on their iPad during the ceremony.
So her first point of wanting kids to see that is not a point anyone has ever really made that I have seen. And I think that's actually a fantastic point. Depending on the age of your kids. So, gosh, when you have like your first memory, like age 4 or something, you will actually start to remember things. That is an incredibly good point. And I actually have a story of my own that I oddly remember to attest to that. Um, I was invited to a wedding. Oh gosh, how old was I? Oh, you know what? I was old enough to drive. I think I was 15, 16. And it honestly wasn't even other people, but it was I was sitting at the table. My sister for some reason wasn't there. She probably had more friends or didn't want to go. I maybe said I wanted to go. I don't know. Um, but it was just really me sitting there with my parents, and the people that they were sitting with. And the more that everybody drank, the more uncomfortable things got and the weirder the conversation got. And that is something I'll never forget, is how strange they began to talk because they were intoxicated. It was really inappropriate conversation. And then even like my parents being tuned up got a little uncomfortable for me as well. It's very weird when you see adults that you admire and love like getting drunk. It's a very weird thing when you're younger. And at that point, again, I was 15, so it's not like I was super young, but young enough to it still be weird. And that was my own personal experience. So that is something really, really great to think of. If you really want your kids to go to the wedding with you, you should, I mean, hey, it's to each their own, but taking it easy in terms of drinking or trying to, you can't control what other people would say, though. Even if you control yourself, you can't control other people and how weird things can get. So that's a fantastic point. To our next point, too, about, um, you know, depending on the age, they're not even going to remember. So why? It's just for you, for the sake of not getting a babysitter or not wanting to leave your child, which again, these are all valid reasons. But when your kid's so young, they're not even going to have a single clue that they were at that wedding or remember it. Um, it is strange because I was a flower girl in my aunt and uncle's wedding at 8. So, I was old enough to remember it and I still kind of remember it, but I'm 30 now and I have like this is what's so sad. I have like two memories from that wedding, and both of them are just very weird encounters of people being drunk. How so these are and I hate that Jamie like unlocked these memories for me and now I kind of remember them. Um very uncomfortable scenarios, and the one was I remember someone that was like 20 years old. She wasn't even 21 yet. And I remember her in particular being incredibly intoxicated. Um, an ex family member of mine, not in the family anymore because of a divorce. It was weird. It was weird. That's all I could say. It was weird. So this is really incredible point, Jamie, and maybe this will, other parents will think now. Maybe if you're a parent and you really want to take your kid to a wedding, they'll probably only remember the awkward drunk encounters. I'm obviously okay. I like to think I'm okay. It didn't kill me as a human, but these are all really good things to think about.
Very long, very rambly. I have a lot of opinions about this, and cut what you need to. But I just don't think, in most cases, a wedding is necessarily the best environment for a child. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. I love this podcast, love Jade, and thanks for listening.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. Thanks so much for your voice recording, and thank you to all. Jamie, Victoria with Burgh Brides, Mia with Clicksburgh Retro Rentals, Carly with Kids Eats Pittsburgh, and Mara from M20 Media. Thank you all so much for sending in your audio and your messages. It really means a lot. Again, thank you for listening. And, these are all just good things to think about if your kids get invited to a wedding. So I want you to, leave comments on this video and tell me, what are your thoughts? Do you still, after hearing some of these sides from frienders, vendors, from other people that have been in weird scenarios, do you still want to really bring your kids to a wedding? Do you want to try to take that next date off? If you're getting married, do you want kids at your wedding? What are your plans? How are you going to navigate that? And again, we kind of touched on a few of the examples of what you can do to try to alleviate some of that awkwardness. If you want to invite some kids, but don't, just the ceremony, make sure they leave. And the last point I do want to bring up, and I tried to get a message and I didn't, but I didn't get a response, unfortunately. But there are, even though I didn't get a response, I'll still shout them out. There are babysitting companies. And I'm trying to pull them up, which would be helpful if I could. Okay. Let's see here. Baby's wedding. Hold on, kids. Let's see. Let's see if it pops up. Okay. Oh boy. Be helpful if I can find it. Hold on, everybody. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, okay. Oh. So I know wedding budgets are a big part of this consideration. I obviously do not have pricing for you. However, one thing to think about is, let's say you do have a lot of out of town guests and it can be hard for them to leave their kids. And you're looking for a solution. Pittsburgh Event Childcare. PittsburghEventChildcare.com. I did message them. I tried to get a response out of them. They liked my message and they saw my message and just hearted it. So I don't know what that was about. I guess they didn't want to be on the podcast, which is fine, but I'm still going to shout them out because I think this is a really good solution. If you need a solution like this, if you're looking for one, if you think this could help so people can bring their kids. But again, it's PittsburghEventChildcare.com. They come to your wedding. So it's basically pop-up daycare or childcare. So you make a separate room within the wedding venue if that is plausible for your wedding venue, a completely different area for children, and they do a pop-up play area. It's pretty neat, honestly, and you have certified babysitters that will watch them at your wedding. So that could be a solution for you. I will tag them in the description of this of the video here so you can check them out, and maybe that could help alleviate some uncomfortableness of if you have a ton of kids or a ton of guests that have kids and you feel like this could be an issue. If you say no kids, that's a response, a possibility for you. Pittsburgh Event Childcare is one of the ones that I have found. If you know of any more, tag them in the comments. Kids at weddings, good conversation. I appreciate you being a part of it, and I appreciate you listening to the Cookie Table podcast, and I'll see you next week. Hey.